Adam, welcome to the show. Pleasure to have you on today.
Thank you, John. It's a pleasure to be here.
I was really excited to have you on because I find your platform just super fascinating, and I wanted to kind of get into the weeds about it. So starting off first here, you said that InPress started as an assignment to solve an issue in media with technology back when, social media's misinformation problem was coming. So what did you see at that time that others might have missed out on where news consumption was heading?
Yeah, that's a phenomenal question. So to kind of take a step back, I had originally had the idea in 2015 when I was an Air Force broadcast journalist, and I had been overseas for 6 straight years. And having been away from where I grew up so long in Ohio, I think I had seen this kind of unique outside view of what was happening. And I think in 2015, it was becoming clear, but definitely not as clear as it is to all of us today, just how much negative consequences algorithms that just inundate you with all the same information that they know that you're into without vetting the quality of it can have on, democracy at large and our ability to recognize sometimes that water is wet, even if it's not that comfortable, right? The thesis that I had to solve for this master's that I was doing at Syracuse University in journalism innovation at that time in 2015 challenged us to solve a problem in the media with technology. And that was the problem I wanted to solve, was like, okay, I'm seeing this outside perspective of a lot of the people who I know and love, who I grew up with, who are otherwise intelligent, successful people, all of a sudden believing objective nonsense. And I at first I couldn't tell a lot of times if they were kidding, and sadly they weren't. I was like, okay, that's what I want to solve for. Because a lot of times in the media landscape, we don't know this is happening to us. It's only when we can't connect with others, we become more lonely, that we maybe start to come to terms with the fact that we've changed, and we've probably changed more rapidly. And this was the first time that was happening in technology at scale with these social media companies, kind of a first in humankind phenomena. And we as journalists could tell people all day, you should read more factual content, or do you value factual news? And most people would say, yeah, I know, and yes, I do, regardless of where they fall on the political spectrum. But if you tell them they should, they're going to be like, oh, no, whatever. I like what I like. The algorithm's juicy. It always agrees with me. Isn't that great? It oversimplifies everything and blames all problems on other people. We're not going to convince people by being like almost overly academic, almost like parenting people. You should do this. You need to do this, because they're just not going to do it. The algorithms are too delicious and addictive. But maybe if we make the engagement with the factual journalism and content more rewarding than the doom scrolls and the echo chambers that are nice and comfy, then we'll get people out of their echo chambers and bubbles voluntarily and excitedly. We'll make engaging with content so much more fun and healthily addictive that when they wake up in the morning, they don't just lowest common denominator open up Instagram. They can't wait to consume facts because it's so exciting and personally rewarding. And that's kind of where the whole idea of community and social matchmaking started, was, you could read news and fall in love about it. Which do you want? Right. So, and now it's come a long way.
Right. And is that kind of the way that you would use to describe InPress these days?
I didn't actually found the company till 2023. Yeah. So had the idea in 2015, but it was genuinely in 2023. I was laying in bed with my now wife in the middle of the night. I jumped up in the middle of the night with a random ADHD lightning bolt to the brain. Was like,
I've had that many times. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. That idea I had like 8 years ago would work way better now with large language models, because that was when ChatGPT was kind of becoming prolific. And that's how we could scale all this subconscious sentiment analysis for news to matchmaking. And I thought, surely somebody's done this by now, and they never did. And so we started building it, and here we are. We launched in DC last August, and now nationwide in April of 2025.
Wow.
It is still a social platform, right? Like, you still consume factual, vetted outlets. Only 12% of outlets so far have been approved on our platform. They have to be highly neutral and reliable over time. The data has to prove it. And we do a couple things. We make it fun to consume, a little easier. So we have things called GISs, which are basically like swipeable AI summaries. We give you points for rating articles. We jokingly call it Duolingo for news, but it's kind of more like media literacy gamification. And the whole way through, when you're reading the news that you would otherwise be reading, and it's easier to consume and it's kind of fun, like a video game, it's also informing a subconscious compatibility profile of your likes and interests. And you can optionally use that for friends matching or date matching. And we see a lot of people do that. Some people sign up for just the news, and then they turn on dating, or they turn off dating because they found someone on InPress, and then they just go to the news. But there's kind of a version of this platform for everyone, but it all comes in and out of engaging with factual news. So we define it as basically the first social news app.
We see a lot of the times engagement is kind of scored by how long somebody spends on a platform or kind of how infinite the doom scroll is. And I feel like your platform tries to attack things more at a finite source in terms of the news you're serving. Like it's not an unlimited, you can't just like go there and keep just like flipping through news all day. You have like a certain limit to what you can consume. How do you kind of balance that with the kind of evil corporation, we're going to make you addicted to this type of thing, and kind of net out with any sort of like monetization at the end of the
Yeah,
day?
the whole idea was to try to bring people
Right.
together on a deeper level than just siloing them. Like that, it's sure I can understand why it's addictive to see stuff that we already know that you like, but that's also how we become more lonely systemically as a society. So what we decided to do was basically build the news feed more like an old school newspaper, meaning
Hmm.
everyone in the local area, in this case New York City, sees the same articles on a given day. Now they can still choose to read and not read what they want, but
Hmm.
the fact that we're starting everybody, frankly, within a more confined data set of, say, 100 and something articles a day, makes it more efficient when we're detecting their subconscious interest because they're pulling from a smaller data set. It's wild to me that this is such a breakthrough to so many people, is that because it's all vetted as close to neutral as we can get news, you're starting everyone at the same data point. So imagine I showed you an article that says water is wet. I show someone else water is wet, but there's too much because of Democrats. Then a third person, water is wet, but there's not enough because of Republicans. And I said, how does that article make you feel in emojis? Which is one of the questions we ask. They're all gonna rate wildly different emotions, but the fact is water's wet. So just show everyone
Sure.
as close to water as wet as you can get. And you're not just doing the right thing by showing them the media literate information, but you're also expediting their ability to connect with others. So
Hmm.
it's one of those rare cases in tech where doing the right thing happens to be not just good for the product, but the bottom line as well. There's definitely an argument to be made. Let's just keep showing more content, to your point, to keep them engaged. But what we're doing is we're over indexing on the outcomes of engaging with journalism
Gotcha.
instead of just basically jeopardizing the content intake, which unfortunately in an algorithm driven social media world has been where both social media companies and outlets have put their attention. More
Hmm.
salacious headlines, more biased things to engage with
Right.
emotion. We're not doing any of that. But what we will
Hmm.
do is we'll make it feel as fun as Mario, make you feel as good as learning a new language on Duolingo, and make you fall more deeply into a connection with people than you've ever been able to. The reason that it was really compelling when we launched, and the reason that we saw a lot of success,
Hmm.
is because it's basically like, for anyone who's familiar with Spotify Blend that makes playlists with your friends and uses AI to kind of fill in the gaps, it's like that, but for everything in the universe.
Hmm.
It's like, wouldn't it be interesting to go into a room full of strangers and know before even saying a word what deep interests you instantly share with everyone around you to break the ice with?
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
it is. And also, never
No, that's
political,
true.
never toxic. We don't ever match on politics or anything like that.
That personalization is very unique, and I think that's helpful to know that you decided to kind of not make the news the polarizing fact. Sometimes it's quite difficult to find news that's right smack dab in the middle and not really leaning any sort of specific way. You know, every kind of network, every kind of source has its own inherent bias in some way. You know, not to be that guy, but you know,
Yeah,
it's a
no,
little
totally.
hard. I feel like to pick those stories. You find yourself going to specific outlets that you find to be more in the middle, or is there kind of a method that you've gotten for finding your stories?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So we basically use an aggregator to pull in APIs from all sorts of outlets, but we use a tool called Advantas in a partnership with them. They
Mhm.
kind of have this very viral social media bias chart that goes viral every so often when they update it. And they have done a phenomenal job with all of their researchers. They have like thousands of outlets on there. Like any outlet we could ever find, even from to the micro local level, is on there. The way that they do this is they basically have an XY axis of neutrality and reliability
Mhm.
over years of time. And we kind of find that the best way to do this is to take our own feelings out of it and just rely on the data and do that at the outlet sort of macro level,
Mhm.
because there are a lot of instances, to your point, where a particular outlet that might pass the snuff on neutrality and reliability has an opinion section, and maybe the person that had write the opinion piece is not that credible or just has a really wild take on something. That's
Uh-huh.
their right as an outlet. They're allowed to have an opinion section. But in aggregate, could you say in the data that over the last several years, with the majority of their content, it's fallen within these very strict neutrality and reliability parameters? Yes, you can.
Mm.
I like to kind of oversimplify this for folks. Would a journalist get fired for factual inaccuracy? If the answer is no, we don't feature.
That's a good line to draw.
Accountability is universal language.
Yeah.
Look, I'm going to be straight with you. Everybody's talking about AI, but most people are just playing around with ChatGPT instead of actually making money from it. That's why we dropped the ultimate crash course to create your own AI side hustle in 7 days. We're talking real frameworks and strategies from the pros like the founder of The Hustle, Sam Parr. It includes mini guides, templates, the whole 9 yards, stuff that takes years to figure out, condensed into 1 week. Stop what you're doing right now and grab it in the show notes. Your future self will thank you.
What changes do you think need to happen at kind of the macro level to how we produce and consume news in order to kind of change that behavior and make it a little more like what your vision is, a little more finite, a little more uniting rather than polarizing?
Yeah, well, I would say the first thing is that we shouldn't be jeopardizing the journalism itself. That's how we lose credibility as journalists, but it's also how our audiences lose trust in not just the outlet itself, but the industry at large. If you start to create content just for the sake of a rating, and the modern sake of a rating is an algorithm, can it get the most viral? You're really just trying to draw on emotions. We're very emotional creatures as humans. And so changing the sort of headlines, the pictures, the way that things are framed, or putting them through a certain biased lens just to appeal to the emotion of a particular audience isn't informing, it's opinion, right? So that's how we kind of think about, don't bastardize the content. Keep the journalists doing their great work, reporting facts, doing what I consider a public service, which is educating the public, right? I like to think that what we should always be doing is thinking very strongly about how do we defend democracy, because we as a democracy have to continue to have access to factual information to be able to make actual judgment calls on how to run society. And democracies are a shared society. So I like to kind of tell people that if there's anyone ever who is making money off keeping you ignorant or dumb, or doesn't want you to have access to factual information, there's probably a reason for that, because the facts aren't in their favor. Like, facts are accountability. So you should always be defending them. I would love to see the traditional sort of viral algorithm go away. Like, the idea that things that perform the best at a macro level get put to the top, but they're on platforms that don't actually have vetting involved is such a dangerous concept. It's such an inherently dangerous, like, but for the first time they came up with that idea, like, I'm sure there had to have been people that were like, this could get kind of sus. And what do you know? Like, of course it did. You don't have to be a human psychologist to know that we like to get really fired up about stuff. It's why I love sports, right? Like, I don't have anything against any of the players on that other team or that city, but all of a sudden I want to see the worst for them for like 90 minutes of a soccer game, right? And it's just like, because it's tribalism, and it's like, it's just who we are as mammals, right? But like, the algorithm just panders to the worst parts of that. So I think what we can do, it's not a content question, it's a delivery question. How can we make the veggies of factual information taste like candy? For us right now, that's community, friendship, love with our matchmaking. That's making people feel really good and proud about their media literacy and giving them the ability to share that and continue to kind of nurture it like a plant. What'll it be tomorrow? What'll it be 5 years from now? Who knows? As long as we're not bastardizing the content along the way.
Yeah, totally. Based on what you've been doing over the past few years with InPress, where do you kind of see news consumption heading? Do you see us more in the next 5-10 years going back to like a more human connection type of role in how we consume news? Or do you think it's going to get more algorithmic over the time, kind of gets worse before it gets better mentality? So where do you think just things are heading generally?
I mean, I would love to see it get more human. I would say that if we're not very intentional and get ahead of the curve, it wouldn't head in a more wholesome direction like that. AI is, of course, making everything more efficient, and that includes how we consume news. I mean, we have AI news summaries on our platform. I'll tell you, it's very easy to do. But if we're not careful, if you don't kind of insert that into other systems that are built around the ethics of allowing people to be enticed to dig deeper, to really understand the world, and not just take the lowest hanging fruit of information they can get to just continue to scroll and kind of just blank out, we'll do that because, it's addicting and we're lazy. So I think I would see AI making almost a sort of blanket consumability of news. I couldn't tell you that that's a good or bad thing. I would err on the side of not great if it's not doing a really good job of summarizing the factual information and really drawing real insights from it. But that's on us, right? As content creators and people creating this technology. I would like to think and be very hopeful, maybe this makes me an idealist, that after all these years of social media, other social media founders and other news founders have lived through the shared consequence of engagement above everything, and that we would be more methodical and intentional about the technologies we're creating. So it's kind of on us to now use technology more intentionally, to be at the bleeding edge, to forge a more mission-driven form of content consumption. And I think what that takes for us in the form of InPress is a team who unapologetically does the right thing. There are going to be people who don't like that we're propagating factual information and making it more engaging than biased, salacious stuff. And we don't care. We make no apologies for educating the public on their right to factual information, and we never will. And I want to see more people in this space doing that exact same thing.
No, it makes a lot of sense because I feel like social media companies can only exploit the way that you use their platform, right? If you use it in a certain way and you're looking for like overreactive stuff and you're commenting and you're kind of engaging with it, then they're going to send you more of it. I think you're right. It kind of starts at that individual level of making the choice of how to consume your news and what platform to use and kind of take it in what way that you want. So yeah, great point. Great points all around. Yeah. Thank you so much for being here, Adam. It was a pleasure to talk to you about InPress, talk to you about the journalism landscape and the news landscape right now. And best of luck with the platform. Yeah, hoping the best for you.
Thanks so much, John. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. Okay, that's going to do it for us today, everybody. Thanks for tuning into the Hustle Daily Show. We're a proud part of HubSpot Media. Our editor is Robert Hartwig, and our executive producer is Darren Clark. We've got a ton more tech and business coverage in our newsletter. If you're not subscribed, go sign up at thehustle.co/email and follow us on Instagram at thehustledaily. We'll catch you later.